Show me the money.
All right, show me the money back for our first ever real NCAA tournament edition. Joining me today, the guy I talked about the fake tournament last year, went to the Joe Lunardi bracket, predicted who would win if it actually happened. Kevin Walsh from SportsGrid is here. Kevin, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. Excited to do a real bracket this go around. Because last year, the fake one, I was able to just to tell everybody, oh, yeah, I had Kentucky and nobody could hold it against me. I know I definitely can't say that this time.
No, because if you make the bad upset call, everybody's going to be on your case.
Yeah. You look, I'm excited, though. What an exciting time. We really, I don't think I realized how much I missed it until we got that selection show back.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I was watching it, and you see the kids jumping up in the air when they see their names on the screen. It just gives you all the juice. You get ready to go. Yeah,
very, very exciting, man. And it's funny. You start going through the bracket, and you're like, "Yep, madness is the right word." They really nailed down that phrase.
Yeah, before we dive into the match here, we got to talk about Iona here because you and I had some fun on Twitter last week when they were going through the conference tournament. You were both Iona alums, and it's definitely a lot of fun seeing them in the dance again under Rick Pitino. And it's a very exciting year for them.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, no team in the country had a longer pause in between single games. 50-plus days Iona went in between single games. Eventually got it back up and running and then just couldn't get it going because of all these COVID issues. Shut it down. We're off well over a week before the MAC tournament. So to show up in the MAC tournament as a 9 seed, having to play Siena in their second game in the MAC tournament. And that was something that was concerning for me because that game had a championship vibe to it. For anybody that watched it, it felt like, whoever wins this game is going to win the MAC. But it's never that simple. Impressed with the job that Pitino did. Obviously, things were tough. I know you and I were kind of talking a little bit about the job that he did. I don't want Tim Cluse and all of his accomplishments to get lost in the shuffle. Mike, we've followed this program as alum. A lot of people, oh, wow, Rick Pitino took Iona to the dance. Listen, 5 years in a row, they've gone to the NCAA tournament. This is Rick's first year. Tim Cluse had this, program becoming a true powerhouse in this conference. And I think Pitino absolutely has the ability, though, to grow it and maybe even take it to that next level.
Yeah, I know Rick Pitino himself said in his post-game press, the first thing he said was, I got to give credit to Tim Cluse for what he built here. And he's sort of coming in here, adding rocket fuel to what the foundation that Cluse built. And you're thinking, okay, maybe next year, 2 years beyond that, maybe this team can really make a run in March. But considering his team played about 5 games in about 2.5 months, that's an impressive feat because I think some of these teams struggle coming off the COVID pause this year.
I know, absolutely, right? Think about a team even as good as Baylor. Played Iowa State their first game after a 3-week COVID delay as 24-point favorites. Hardly won that game. Single-digit victory. They trailed the lion's share of that game and then lost their next game by double digits to Kansas. I know that Iona's not playing, Big 12 level competition, but still goes to show to come off of that kind of pause and get the job done is impressive. They'll now get the national stage there. How much of a game can they give Alabama? Who knows? I think Alabama's a very, very good basketball team, but just the ability to be on that national stage and, show to recruits, listen, this is going to continue. We're going to keep going to that NCAA tournament. And, next year, maybe be on TV a little bit more if they're not taking pauses every 3 weeks,
Yeah, and I look at the spread of that game. I feel like a lot of respect for the Pitino brand name in there because Iona is getting 17 points against the Crimson Tide according on the FanDuel sportsbook right now. So would you take the points or would you trust the Tide to cover that number?
Look, ultimately, Mike, there's only one decision for me. I'm going to have to take the points. What I actually like to do, the last time we had an Iona game, they played UNC, and I just bet the over because it's like, Iona's going to get up and down and run it. Pitino's got these guys defending very low-scoring games during the MAC tournament. But, Alabama themselves actually can defend as good as they are offensively, ranked second in the country in defensive efficiency. So, maybe it's an under game. You have to back the Gales, but Bama's a very, very good team. They didn't get some light fraudulent 2 seed here.
No, they did not. I will also say, remember that Iona-UNC game? Iona led at the half, so you never know with some of these games.
I know.
Happen.
Yeah, I made a little first half money line. Not mad at that.
Yeah, a little first half money line would be fun. But let's talk about some betting strategies here, because obviously when you get your bracket in your hands, obviously there's the standard, I'm going to fill the pool out, but there's more ways to play this game. When you look at this tournament from a gambling perspective, how are you approaching things?
It's a great question, Mike, and I just kind of want to make this point off the jump here with the bracket versus kind of betting game to game. Fill out your brackets, have fun with them. They're a blast. There's a reason why everybody talks about filling out the bracket. I don't think March Madness would be what it is if we didn't all fill out brackets. With that being said, though, if you really, really like an underdog, and we know upsets are going to be coming, okay? Don't leave money on the table. Like, hey, look, if you're just kind of closing your eyes and you're clicking, yeah, give me Oregon State, yeah, give me Morehead State, UNC Greensboro, okay, whatever. But if you're sat there, Mike, at the computer, you're breaking it down, and you're like, man, I just love Oregon State over Tennessee. The Beavers are red hot. They won the Pac-12 Conference Championship tournament, and Tennessee's a little bit of an up-and-down kind of squad. Go out there and bet that team on the money line. There's a lot, like, they're plus 280 money line. Think about, Mike, you're playing in $10 a pop, 20 entries in a big bracket challenge. $200 pot, you split it up. Maybe you'll win $100 when it's all said and done. If you're lucky enough to, have a good tournament throughout the rest of the way, you got to bet $35 to win $100 on Oregon State money line here. So the point I just want to make to people, Mike, is don't leave those money lines on the table if you are filling out your bracket and come against a dog that you really, really like.
Yeah, it's a great point, because I also, one thing I look at, I'm trying to fill my bracket out, just looking at the lines, because Vegas knows these teams very well, and you see some of these lines that are tight, and see some of these where the double-digit C's are only 4 or 5 point favorites. That's where you're sitting there going, maybe that's what I should be thinking about more. I'm trying to find my upsets in the bracket.
Well, 100%. And I think, as you're going through this, though, at least right now, I am not in a mindset of, look, I'm ready to go upset crazy. I know it's been 2 years since we last had a bracket, but the last time that we did this, the Sweet 16, every single 1, 2, and 3 seed made the Sweet 16. The 4s, 2 of them advanced, a 5, and then a 12. You basically had all of the favorites run shot to the Sweet 16. So, yes, the round of 64 is going to provide upsets. And, yes, somebody's going to get in there in the round of 32. But don't expect that nonsense Loyola Chicago Kansas State Elite 8 game that we got 3 years ago. That's not how things typically go. 1 seeds are 1 seeds for a reason. 2 seeds are the best team in the country. They're right up there. Just for the Iona, point of it, 132-8. 2 seeds are historically against 15 seeds. So don't go wild here thinking, it's going to, no, some of these favorites are going to win, Mike.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Loyola Chicago Kansas State Elite 8 you mentioned a couple of years ago, a big part of that was Virginia losing to UMBC in the first round. That screwed the entire bracket up.
Correct. Exactly. And I'll tell you this, and who knows? Maybe I'll eat my words. I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see a 16 seed win for another decade. At least, it took almost a bazillion years for it to happen the first time, and now all these other 1 seeds are on high alert because it's like, that could actually happen to us. I don't think you're going to see that for at least a decade, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I think the one of the ones here, Gonzaga, they are such a whopping favorite of the rest of the field. Look at some of their odds on FanDuel right now. They are minus 210 to reach the Final Four, which is absurd. They're basically laying money to get there. You're getting minus 1,500 to get to the Sweet 16 and plus 200 weight all. The odds of Gonzaga are staggering.
Yeah, and it is impressive that a team that typically deals with they haven't played anybody moniker can be so universally agreed upon as the favorite. Now, they played Kansas, Iowa, West Virginia, and Virginia this year. All those games did happen in 2020, though. Been a while, since they had that level of competition in their building. But to be honest, Mike, only West Virginia kept it to single digits. That level of competition didn't really seem to faze them. I think the almost loss to BYU is about as much as you could ask for in terms of somebody putting a real scare into Gonzaga. And all they did was win the second half by about 20 points and still somehow come back and beat BYU by double digits. Gonzaga has done every single thing you could ask to earn their position as the number one overall seed, and a tier, I would say, Mike, to themselves in terms of the futures market.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, you look at some of the odds of the other number one seeds, they're nowhere near as close to what Gonzaga has right now.
Yeah, and that's what's going to make it really interesting. If you guys out there listening want to play in this futures market, you can grab multiple teams unless you think it's Gonzaga. If you're a Gonzaga believer, you're not going to, grab the Bulldogs at plus 200 and then, I'll also grab maybe an Alabama or I'll grab an Oklahoma State. No, not an option. That you can't. If you like Gonzaga, that's your one pick. If you like literally anybody else, you could grab 2 to 3 teams.
Oh, 100%. And let's talk about the upsets, because the upsets are what make this fun, especially in the first couple of rounds. I have a couple I like. Who are some of the upsets you like in the first couple of rounds?
Yeah, so one of the real popular ones right now, Mike, is this Ohio-Virginia game, right? Everybody getting very, very excited here that the Bobcats could possibly take down the Cavaliers. And this is one of the big things that I thought would be very important to bring up here is still some of the uncertainty with COVID, right? Virginia's battling possibly COVID. We don't even know. They're supposed to be without a player for the game against Ohio. We don't know the player. The fact that we don't know the player almost makes me think it could be someone important, and they'd rather not say. That line opened up at 10. It's down to 7.5. I mean, under those same guidelines, Kansas, look, and I'm not telling you I'm going to take Eastern Washington here, even though, look, they're as hot as they could possibly be coming out of their conference. But at the end of the day, no McCormack possibly. Again, those COVID issues. Mike, it's been such an important part of the season. I can't turn a blind eye to that stuff.
Yeah, I think I love Ohio. They are my number one upset pick on the board. Not only because Virginia, Tony Bennett has said his most of his roster's in quarantine right now. They can't even practice as a full team until about a day before their game against Ohio. Yeah. And Ohio is a legitimate NBA prospect in Jason Preston, who I've seen him play. He played against Iona last year in the Heinz Center. I was in the truck for that game. That kid is really good. He has a big future. This team goes up and down. They can shoot the ball well from outside. I love them. I love Winthrop over Villanova getting 6.5 points. I think no Colin Gillespie, big deal there. Also, some other ones in the lines that popped up here. A couple of these Rutgers get actually favored by 1.5 in their 7-10 matchup against Clemson. I think the Scarlet Knights are a little undervalued. Syracuse +3. San Diego State cannot hit the outside jump shot. It's a big problem. He's trying to beat the 2-3 zone.
Look, I think San Diego State, though, is a team that it's going to come down to how quickly they can figure out that zone. That's a great in-game betting type of game to me, Mike. Just let me get to, honestly, the under 16 timeout in the first half, maybe the under 12 timeout. Let me get 8 minutes under the belt, and you'll probably be able to tell how ready San Diego State is for the zone and which way you're going to want to play that game. I'd be remiss if I didn't follow up, though, with your Winthrop-Villanova point here. And I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate. On one end, I feel like everybody's been dying to pick against Villanova, and that almost always worries me. You follow enough of the gambling stuff to know the idea of the public underdog and how that typically blows up in everybody's face. I'm just a little weary, though, of going against Jay Wright. It's not that long ago this guy was crowned the unquestioned best coach in the country. I get it. 2 games without Gillespie, 0-2. I 100% get it. But for me, I'm having just a little bit of an issue fading Jay Wright with this level of comfort that I feel like most people seem to have.
Yeah, it's certainly a fair point. I think mine also is a confidence in Winthrop, because that team is 23-1, make a very high-scoring offensive team. I just wonder how much offensive firepower the loss of Gillespie hurts that team with.
Oh, and again, no doubt about it, losing Gillespie is an issue. And Winthrop's, it's a good case study, right? And it goes to show just why this is so difficult. You mentioned, Winthrop is a 23-1 basketball team. but they don't have the pedigree. They don't play the competition. Had Winthrop been able to, schedule bigger opponents earlier in the season, we would know a little bit more. We don't. They come in with that uncertainty, which is really March Madness at its core.
Yeah, that's definitely very true. I also think you brought up Kansas for one thing. I do think they could get out of the first round. I don't think Eastern Washington will beat them. Second round, if they run into USC, I think you get good odds on the Trojans in that game. And the Trojans are good at one thing that Kansas is not good at. And USC has Evan Mobley. Kansas is not very big on the interior. It might be without McCormick, as you said, or he might be very rusty coming off a COVID pause. So that's what I would love in the second round is the Trojans over Kansas.
Yeah, I think USC could very well make a run to the Elite Eight. When you look at that squad and what Evan Mobley could possibly do to Kansas if they're without McCormack, or even Iowa if that's who they draw, Luka Garza had his lunch eaten up by Kofi Cockburn when they were playing in the Big Ten. Now, Mobley doesn't come with that same size in terms of, I guess, width that you get from Cockburn, but I mean, that's just a huge player, all of 7 feet tall, that could very well give Garza some issue. Look, and under a similar guideline, Mike, how do you not look at Michigan State? Now, this is one of those games you never know because they got to play a play-in. But last tournament was the first time since the inception of the play-in games that one of those teams didn't at least advance to the round of 32. If Izzo gets himself past BYU and he plays a Texas squad, he'll have – the thing is, like this Michigan State team has beaten over the last month 2 number 1 seeds and a 2 seed. I know they were at home, but when the chips were on the table, Izzo had that group respond.
Yeah, Michigan State, I had them getting out of the first 4. I think they will beat BYU and get to that Texas game. I think the thing with them people forgot is that this team was ranked number 4 in the, I think as entering the Big Ten season. They had some lumps. They had the COVID pause. They had 3 straight road games right after that. But I think they are going to make some noise here. I think they can give Texas a scare. Texas, I think, will end up winning because they have more athletes, and Michigan State is a little vulnerable in the interior. But I think Izzo is going to be a big problem for people in March once again.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we've come to learn from Izzo. I'm also very excited to see what kind of run Oklahoma State can go on here with Cade Cunningham, because, boy, also, by the way, just what an absolute screw job, them being a 4 instead of a 3 in the same region as West Virginia. I don't know who in the committee decided they were done watching the Big 12 tournament, but, I mean, that's just unbelievable. They beat West Virginia in the regular season finale in the 4-5 game of the Big 12 tournament and then go on to beat Baylor and somehow end up below West Virginia in the same region, and that's absolutely criminal there. But Oklahoma State proved, Mike, that they're more than just Cade Cunningham, which is incredibly exciting because they have Cade Cunningham. Any given game, they got the best player on the court, plus a lot of guys that have stepped up around him. That Oklahoma State team is going to be very exciting to follow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they won the regular season finale at West Virginia without Cade Cunningham. Avery Anderson, Ike Leakley had a huge games in that frame. And again, this is a team that just you worry a little bit because they're youth, but Cade Cunningham is just such a difference maker. I think we get him into the Sweet 16. They take on Ayo DeSumo in Illinois. That'll be a lot of fun. Oh,
yeah. That's the game that I'm hoping we get. This is the thing, too, at Illinois that's become pretty apparent over kind of some of their games here. We know that DeSumo is their best player, but Coburn really seems to be that X factor because if they're playing a team that has any kind of answer for him or can get him in foul trouble, that'll mess him up. But when a team is hopeless against Kofi Coburn, who actually went to high school right around the corner from where I live, Christ the King, when Coburn is in a rhythm, I mean, these opponents are just hopeless, man.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Let's talk about some sleepers here because obviously we have our upsets, but are there a team you have your eye on that's not getting enough hype that you feel like can make a deep run here?
Yeah, that's of course going to be in the eye of the beholder, right? Because you've got teams that are respected in the on the odds market. Like Houston, it gets got more respect than maybe I thought they would. Currently on the FanDuel Sportsbook, tied for 6th best odds for the national championship with Ohio State. But I've also heard some people, Houston, they're almost getting the Gonzaga treatment. Mike, who they played. Some people kind of willingly going with either a Clemson or a Rutgers coming from bigger conferences to move past them. But I'll make this point once again, Mike. Like, for me, because I've gone through some of the past tournaments, I'm not like, I don't have some double-digit seed making this crazy Elite Eight run. I got a lot of 1 versus 2, maybe a 4 will play a 2, but I think a lot of our best teams are our best teams.
Yeah, I think the one I'm going to throw out there as a sleeper is Texas Tech, because they played in the Big 12. They're a 6 seed right now. They played a very rough league where basically the top 7 teams were all in contention for number 1 or 2 seeds at some point in the season. And they get a game against Utah State they can win. They play Arkansas potentially the second round. Arkansas is a team that has trouble defending at points in the game. I would not be shocked if Texas Tech gets to the Sweet 16 and gives Ohio State a run for their money.
Yeah, I think Arkansas is a team that people will be willing to pick on. I think Colgate, I could see being a team that people are willing to pick in their bracket as a 14 seed. And ultimately, whenever you move that 14 seed on, you're going to be probably willing to move that 6 seed past them. But Utah State's no slouch. They got themselves a win over a San Diego State squad, played a close one against BYU, had multiple wins over Colorado State. We saw in our first 4 out as well. I don't think that'll be an easy game for them. I'll tell you one team that I'm very excited to watch. Again, I don't know how far it's going to go, but I'm very excited to see what Florida State is going to be bringing to the table here. I know UNC Greensboro has kind of the making some people think of an upset, but that ACC conference title game loss, I know a lot of people left negative on that because of the, Georgia Tech being able to beat them and Georgia Tech only getting a 9 seed. Florida State lost that game by 3, despite breaking an ACC conference tournament record for turnovers in a game, 25. I think the Seminoles, man, Scotty Barnes, huge fan. I think Leonard Hamilton's a great coach. I think Florida State, now I think they will be a little bit of a popular pick, but I think with reason, Mike, I think they're a really strong squad.
Yeah, I love the Seminoles. Another team I think is interesting where they are in the bracket is Uconn, because they have a player who can carry them in a game like James Bouknight, who is a potential game breaker, and they have a winnable first-round game against Maryland, which is a weird team because basically all their key role players between 6'5" and 6'7", so there's no real position diversity in that group. Then they get to potentially, assuming Alabama in the second round, barring something freaky with Pitino out coaching Nate Oates. But we're looking at a situation here where maybe Bouknight puts the team on his back, gets hot, and they happen to pull a stunner.
I think, and I hear you on that, I think UConn is a great test case, though, for this Big Ten. Bias isn't the right word. I guess just Big Ten love. The most teams at any conference put into the NCAA tournament. And if you look through it, there's, some underlying metrics that suggest this might not just be the best conference in the country, but very well the best conference of all time. So I'm very excited to see, well, what does Maryland do now that they're playing a non-Big Ten team? We talked about Michigan State. What kind of a run can that be? Rutgers being the favorite in a 10-7 matchup as the 10. I'm very interested to see how far these Big Ten teams move on.
I am too. And let's talk about some bets you want to make. It's not necessarily, it could be whatever you want. It could be Final Four. It could be over-unders in first-round games. What are some that you have circled and say, I'm going to make these for sure before the tournament starts?
Yeah, I'll throw out one here right now. Baylor to make the Final Four at plus 115, I actually think is a worthwhile play. I'm more concerned over the UNC game than the 4-5 possibility of either a Purdue or Villanova. And I know Ohio State or Texas Tech could be waiting at the bottom. Baylor, to me, is still on that same exact tier as Gonzaga. I get it. They didn't beat Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was red piping hot. It was a very, very close back and forth kind of game. Their one other loss, the second game off of a 3-week COVID delay. And you said it. The Big 12 sent 7 teams into this tournament. But it's not just 7 teams. This was 7 squads that spent the lion's share of the season inside the top 25 in the country. And I think the South is something, I know a lot of people going back and forth what's easier, the South or the West. The West, you make the argument because Gonzaga's already beaten the other top 4 squads. But I think Baylor should have their way with the South, and at plus money, I'm actually willing to make the play on Baylor. And then if I was going to look maybe into this futures market, I'm not mad at the Houston 2,100 price. I really do think that Midwest is a bracket of death, if you will. But I really think it's the top half of that bracket, Mike, that should be feeling hard done by. Loyola Chicago, 9th in KenPom. Overall, 9th. The top 8 teams on KenPom are all of the 1s and all of the 2s. So if this is not some obscure thing that you can't trust, and it thinks Loyola Chicago is a top 10 team. Georgia Tech won the ACC Conference Tournament. Tennessee almost took out Bama. We've already talked about Oklahoma State. I'd rather try and grab somebody from the bottom of that Midwest, Mike. I think Houston at 21-1 is an interesting number.
Yeah, it is. I got a couple I'm going to throw out there. I think Texas plus 700 gets to the Final Four is a fun number to play because this is a team that does not get enough respect. I mean, they did win the Big 12 tournament. I get that they had the no contest against Kansas, but this team had a good run. They had a COVID interruption in the middle of their season, made things tough. Michigan's vulnerable in that region. I think they have the length that they can take Alabama down, and they have enough skill to beat Florida State. They like that plus 700. I think also, I got some over-unders to play for you. I think the over in the Arkansas-Colgate game has to get played because these teams like to go up and down the floor. It's 162.5. I think you got to go the over there.
Yeah, it's the highest number on the board for a reason. That number opened up at 158.5, so people have been clicking away. Little betting tip, don't be scared to play the first half number. College basketball, typically the first half total, you will find about 10 points lighter than the second half total. That's because the foul games in college can be absolute madness. The other day in that ACC conference championship game, there were 24 points scored in the final minute and 5 seconds, thanks to Scotty Barnes taking a bunch of layups. So if you guys see a number, you're like, it's a little bit high, don't be scared to play that first half total to the over. And if it doesn't cash, well, you could always buy back in then at a lighter number. If they miss the first half number, your new in-game number, Mike, will be lighter. So I think first half totals will also be an interesting way to play it.
That's true. I also have an under in the first round. Like the Wisconsin-North Carolina under 130.5. It's based on the way these two teams play because Wisconsin is always a team that's historically slowed down the tempo, runs the full half court, uses the whole shot clock. And North Carolina as a team is a back-to-the-basket team. They have 4 big who are big contributors down low. So that's one I could see this game being in the 60s.
Yeah, I think that's a game, though, where you're almost going to pick it based on who you really like in the game. Because I think UNC would prefer a game that's going to get a little bit into maybe mid-140s. Wisconsin certainly can drag you down, knock you out. Goodness me, that Big Ten Conference championship game, not in the championship, Big Ten Conference game against Iowa was putrid to watch the final 10 minutes of that basketball game. So I think that's one where the total gives me an indication of how somebody might feel about the spread.
Yeah, it's certainly true. And obviously, you got to wrap up. You got to get some Final Four picks on the board. We're recording on Tuesday afternoon, Kevin. As of right now, and you are obviously reserved the right to change your mind before the tournament starts. Sure. Who would you pick as the Final Four right now?
Yeah, so right now, my Final Four, and I talked about this, I'm not going like some crazy upsets here. I got a couple of 1s and a couple of 2s. I've got Baylor playing Houston, and I've got Gonzaga playing Alabama.
Yeah, as of right now, it's also, I'm going to put mine on the record for now. I have reserved the right to change it. I'll let people know on the podcast next week if I did. I have 3 1s. I have Gonzaga, Baylor, and Illinois getting there. I have Texas out of the East region. So Gonzaga, Texas, Baylor, Illinois. That's my Final Four.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting again to see if Illinois can survive the Midwest. And you'll notice neither one of us really said great things about Michigan. Boy, am I worried. Again, similar to what I said about Nova here. Everybody like, this Michigan team's lost it. No livers. They lost to Ohio State by a point and had a shot at the gun to win that basketball game. And look, you never know. Livers could possibly come back. Juwan Howard's done a great job with that program. Michigan is a team that I know is the most vulnerable 1 seed, which is not a slight. Somebody had to be. But I feel like that's not going to be a team a lot of people put into the Final Four.
Yeah, I think with them, people don't realize that, like, even without Isaiah Livers, they are going to get the second weekend because LSU cannot defend a nosebleed, and they end up playing the Tigers. They're going to find a way to win that game because they're a better defensive team. And State Bonaventure, I just don't know if they have the firepower because Shawn D. Brown is a pretty good backup option. The problem comes if you're running into Florida State without Livers. That's your issue, in my opinion.
I think LSU, though, could give them a run. As much as I just, I'm kind of talking against myself here. Oh, be careful. LSU and the peak of their offense, if Michigan is struggling to find baskets in like they did in some of those spots against Ohio State, they might be playing from behind, and that's always a scary sight.
It is a scary fight. Definitely a fun tournament, Kevin. Thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, how can people follow you on SportsGrid and keep up with some of the stuff you're up to?
Yeah, go ahead and follow me over on Twitter at @TheKevinWalsh. I'm actually quite close to hitting 1,000 Twitter follower marks. That'd be cool if you want to follow me over there. You can catch me on SportsGrid, Sirius XM, channel 204, doing the early line, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern time. Then in play sports tonight, a little bit switch up on the night schedule there. That's 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, both shows. Hopefully people can come check us out over there, Mike.
Yeah, are you going to be on any in-game lives during a tournament?
Yeah, I'll be doing – so in-play sports tonight is very similar to the in-game live stuff that I was doing. And again, that's 7 to 10, Monday through Friday at night. But I'll also definitely be on Sunday during the heat of things for the round of 32, which is really exciting. I'm wondering if it'll stick, the Friday wraparound to Monday type of deal that we're going to have going this week. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I think I'm curious they're going to try and change that a bit because that would give them a little more momentum going into that second week.
Yeah, it's, there are certain things that are being born out of COVID times in sports that might have staying power. Like, I think the runner on second base in extra innings in baseball, I'm fine with that. I know people think it ruins the game, but look, we do shootouts in hockey. Like, your regular season games are not meant to go for 7 hours. They're just not. I think this could be something that is created. And the thing that everyone just feels so weird that Monday after all you did was watch college basketball. It's very unsettling. So to kind of do a little wrap around there, I don't mind it.
No, I don't mind it either. I mean, I think also the network probably would like it a little better because then you get some more, especially that second weekend, you have like games in primetime Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, again, I think the schedule could be here to stay, but also you never know. We might get to Monday and be like, oh gosh, I can't handle this anymore. So we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Kevin, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it, Mike. Always a blast.